Now it is time to introduce our main speaker for tonight, Ken.
Good morning. My name is Ken, or good evening. My name, and I wanted to be perfect. Damn, screwed it up already. My name is Ken, and I'm an alcoholic. First, I want to thank Kenny Lombino and Laura for asking me to speak. The closure for me is amazing because I came into this room a little bit before July 29th, 1986. For those of you who count that sort of thing, that's 22 and a half years ago. And I was sure of one thing. I wasn't an alcoholic. I didn't belong here. It was my wife's fault. All I had to do was find her and kill her. And Kenny said, keep coming back. But he reached out his hand to me when nobody else did. And I mean, I look back now and I was absolutely nuts, like every newcomer. And I say every newcomer before you get your bowels in an uproar. When you're new, you are nuts and you don't know it. See, that's the good side. And if you stay sober, at some point in your sobriety, you're going to look back at what you did and you're going to go, oh my God, that's sobriety. That's sanity. You know, because I look back, okay? I had been drinking for 3 days. My wife of 5.5 months was leaving me. My best thinking was to take a 12-gauge shotgun and lock her in the bedroom. I just forgot the phone was in there. Okay, and she called the police and had me arrested. Now, they caught me. I know this is an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. Right, they caught me with 14 empty bottles of Stolichnaya, 6 more in the freezer full, and a little less than 5 pounds of cocaine. And I am so insane, I'm looking at the police going, give me a blood test. I don't do that stuff. And they believe me. You know, and they arrested me and they took me downtown, you know, and talked to me for a few days. And after that, I remember the cop looking at me. They had, well, I had 7 guns and 3,000 rounds of ammunition. And they said, why? And I said, because, you know, I might need it. I mean, you know. And he said, for what? World War III. I mean, you know. And I'm thinking, I don't have a problem. I'm coming in here, we're talking 1986 when Getting Sober and Rodeo was on Rodeo. You know, this room was full of the most beautiful women in this town and the most beautiful men. You know, it was wall to wall. Everybody had leather jackets, black leather jackets, and rough out boots, except me. You know, I couldn't hold a job. And I would come to the meeting, and then my sponsor would take me to the Old World, which was a coffee shop in Beverly Hills. And I would rag on the people at the meeting, you know, because nobody was hugging me. You know, all of you were hugging each other and saying hello and how's it doing and kissy this and, you know, stuff like that. And I'm like, I don't belong with those people. Nobody's hugging me. And Kenny said, why don't you try taking a shower? And I'm like, what a thought. So every Friday, you know, hey, once a week was a big improvement, you know, and he gave me a job. He says, you can open the door. Now back then at 7 o'clock, the doors opened, right? At 7:05, there wasn't a seat left. And I mean like that. And I had this stupid little $9 Timex that I would sit at the atomic clock on the phone so that those doors opened up exactly at 7 o'clock. You know, and that was my whole world. I took the bus. I mean, I couldn't work. I didn't have a car. I didn't, you know, and I used to go to the secondhand store to get some clothes to wear because I was living in a pair of sweats, you know, and I didn't even take them off to clean them, you know. That was my job, just go to the meetings, and I went to the log cabin back in the architects' days. I mean, I'm seeing heads shaking, yeah, you know, remember that? You know, and I was at the meetings, you know, with Mickey Bush and you know, just getting sober. But I didn't believe I had a problem. You know, I heard your stories. God, you needed to get sober. You know, but not me. All I had to do was find my wife and kill her and get my cameras back and, you know. And I would sit at meetings, at architects' meetings, and write copious notes on legal pads, on the explanation to the jury, you know, so that they would understand why I had to do this. You know, and nobody invited me for coffee. I mean, when you're sharing at the meeting about wanting to kill your wife, nobody invites you to coffee. I don't understand that, you know. But see, I thought I was sane. I had been wronged. And God, we know there's nothing like an alcoholic who believes they have been wronged, you know. And I went to meetings and I did that. And after I got sober for a while, there was a guy who used to come to this meeting. I don't know if anybody remembers him, Jeff Ross. One of the best looking men you have ever seen. You know, dimple in his chin that put Kirk Douglas to shame. Tall, good looking, hooked on a needle, you know. And he got me a very big loan to get some camera equipment and start working again. And I started working again, you know, and a salon in Beverly Hills gave me a studio to take pictures in, and I started taking pictures again, you know. And in the middle of a shooting, my lighting came back. You know, how I used to light the models, because I had this huge studio in right across the street from Paramount, you know, where I was arrested. And, you know, the people came back, you know, and they heard I was sober. And they heard that, you know, that I was good again. And so I started shooting again. The problem was that the people I used to play with came back too. And I couldn't do it. You know, I couldn't play that game anymore. And you know, I'm shooting and things are, you know, going crazy. That's not me anymore. And that used to be my life. And I was around the program for a while, and something happened that I'm going to share, you know, with the newcomers. That you know, I was around the program for a while, still not believing I'm an alcoholic, and I went on a 12-step call. And I'm reading the guy, chapter 5, you know, and chapter 3. And he looks at me and he says, "What are you going to tell him tomorrow?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "You just drank my drink." Now, to this day, I still don't remember picking up his drink, you know. But I had that little explosion. And he said, "Well, I'll tell you, I'm a newcomer." And he says, "All right." He says, "Well, why don't you go get some, vodka, and I'll go get some, blow, and then we'll meet back here and read the big book." And I'm like, "All right, fine." Sound like a good idea at the time, And I'm reading, and he comes back, and we get together, and we're reading it. We're going through it, and I'm getting a little crazy. I put away about 1.5 quarts of the vodka and then stole half of his cocaine. I know, and we get in a fight, and he storms out, and it's 5 minutes after 2. And I drank the vodka, and I did the coke, and I am going crazy. And the phone starts ringing. It's my roommate. He came home and saw that I was out and got the hell out. Good, And people are calling me up all of a sudden. Just go in the bathroom and pour it down. And I'm like, "No, you don't understand." I mean, when you're in the disease, logic, forget that, And I'm drinking, and I drink all the vodka. So I tear through the house, and the only thing in the whole house with any alcohol in it is a quart of Listerine. Now, I want you to know that it goes down rough. I am a creative alcoholic. You mix it with iced tea with a lot of sugar, sort of like a mint julep. Well, you've never been that desperate, aren't you lucky? All right, and I put away the quart of Listerine. And I went into the bathroom to get the last 3 fingers of the Listerine, and doesn't that sound classy? I went in to get the last 3 fingers of the Listerine, and I looked in the mirror, and I saw what I looked like. I was dying, and I knew it, And all of a sudden, everything you had said, was right there. I knew I was an alcoholic. And I walked in the bedroom, and I got on my knees, and I said, "God help me, I'm an alcoholic." And I meant it. For the first time in my sobriety, when I said I'm an alcoholic, I meant it. And the phone rang, spooky. It was my sponsor, and he said, "All right, we'll pick you up in the morning, and I will take you to a meeting." And they did. They took me, they picked me up, and they walked me into the shower, clothes and all, and cleaned me up, put me on some fresh clothes, and took me to the log cabin. And I sat there crying like a baby. I thought sobriety was so easy. All you had to do was make a decision not to drink. I didn't need you. I didn't need your God. I didn't need your steps. I just decided not to drink. And that don't cut it, folks. Because if I decide not to drink, I can decide to drink. If I'm in charge, we're in trouble. So I went to the log cabin, and I sat and cried. And I reached out to my sponsor, and I reached out to people, and I reached out to this meeting and other meetings, and I remember just after this, my sponsor and I go to the old world, and I'm telling him how the women here aren't saying hello to me, and the guys are, ride motorcycles. God, there were 50 motorcycles, And he says, "You don't like the meeting?" And I went, "No." He says, "Good, take a commitment." And that's when Kenny said, "All right, you're the door guy." And I got to tell you, for 8 years, I was the door guy. That was my whole identity. In the meantime, I started shooting, and I had to give that up. When I started shooting, and the people started coming back, I just couldn't live that life anymore. So I closed the studio, and I paid back the money to the people that had loaned it to me, and I got mad at God. Boy, I remember that. Why the hell did you get me sober? Why did you give me my talent back? And then you show me, what I can't do. And I went to bed. And in the morning I woke up and there was one word, teach. And I talked to my sponsor and he said you had what's called a knowing. You ask God a question and you get an answer. That's a knowing. It's unspoken, you just know it. And I was like, but something's wrong. Because that means going back to college. Now, I don't know about you. I flunked out of college in 1963. I went to, college in Florida and welcome, young lady from Florida, by the way. I flunked out of Stetson University. And because I didn't study, I just showed up. And that doesn't work. When I went back to college, as a damn near senior citizen, I discovered a secret that nobody ever told me before. And that is, if you read the book and do the homework, you can actually pass the course. I didn't know that. And I went back to college. I went to Santa Monica College, to be exact, and it didn't start out easy. I took a job driving limousine, and I got an appointment to enroll at Santa Monica College. So I drive up in the parking lot in a big black stretch limo, and the guard just lets me go right on through. He wasn't going to stop the limo, and I've got to go in and make the appointment. And I got out of the limo, and the voices in my head are saying, you don't belong here. You're too old to go back to school. You're too stupid to go back to school. You're too fat to go back to school. I didn't know what that one had to do with anything, but my head, And I got back in the limo and drove home. And the counselor at the school called me up when I got home, and she said, you missed your appointment. And I'm like, yeah. And I couldn't think up a lie fast enough. She said, what happened? And I said, I was afraid. I couldn't get out of the car. And she said, of course, come on back. We'll walk you through registration. And that's what they did. I drove back, and she met me in the parking lot, and walked me through registration. And I went back to school, and I studied, and I read the book, and I did the homework, and I passed, the courses. I found out I'm very good with computers and photography, but nobody wanted a photography teacher. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll go towards, computers. But that runs into some problems too. I was taking a big computer programming final, and it was about one of those 3-hour killers. And we're walking out after it's over, and one of the other guys in the class comes over and he goes, tell you what, why don't you get a 6-pack? He's got 2 big doobies and about half a gram of cocaine. He says, why don't you go get a 6-pack and we'll party? And I looked at him and I said, I'm sorry, but you don't have enough. And do you know, it broke his heart? That wouldn't have even been a wake-up call, right? But for him, that was a weekend party. And I'm like, you enjoy, because I'm a pig. I used to talk to my sponsor and say, after Friday night, I'm going to go out after the meeting. I'm going to get a couple of girls. I'm going to go down to Palm Springs, And I'm going to get a bottle of vodka and a couple of, and I'm going to party for the weekend. And I'll be back Monday. And you know what he used to say? If you could come back, you wouldn't be an alcoholic. If you could go down there and party for the weekend and come back, you wouldn't have a problem. Because Sunday night, you'd be going, maybe I can make it Tuesday. Right? And those of us that were around then, I'm sitting here saying, I don't have a problem. Remember where the Rodeo meetings used, the Cocaine Anonymous Rodeos on the weekend were up in Santa Barbara? So I knew everybody went up there, partied for the weekend, and came back Monday like nothing had happened. It was crazy in those days. But I went back to college. Oops. All right. I went back to college, and I studied and did the best I could do. And I started taking pictures again, without the big studio and without the big overhead and without any responsibilities, just to have fun. And I found out that I can. I got my degree. Then I got my AA degree and my BA degree. And I went and got my master's degree in computers. And they gave me a class to teach at Santa Monica College. And I'm sitting there. And my class was so advanced. I'd never done it. I'm reading the book the night before class so that the next day I can go in and go, well, when you do that, But I did it. I actually walked through it, and I was scared to death. But see, I don't know if you can understand this or not. When I was the photographer in Hollywood, shooting all the big models and everything, and drinking and drugging like crazy, I used to be scared to death that I'd be out of focus, that my lighting would be bad, that my exposure would be bad. Something would go wrong. And I would be absolutely paralyzed with fear. Then I'd get the film back from the lab and I'd look at it frame by frame. And it was like, okay. And then the next fear would take over. The fear that what if the client doesn't like it? Okay. What if they look for another photographer? What if they look for somebody who's better, who's younger, who's whatever? And the fear, and I would drink more and drug more and push more. And I didn't know how to handle it. And it just kept getting crazier and crazier and crazier. And I kept drinking and drugging more and more and more. Then I get sober, and I'm working the steps, and I'm working the program, and I get through some things, and all of a sudden that same fear starts coming back. Now I've got, a class. What if they find out I don't know what I'm doing? What if they get somebody in class who knows what they're doing? I had kids in the class who knew more about, computer programming than I did. And it's going on and on and on again. And I turned to people in the program, and said, what the hell do you do? And they said, suit up and show up. Do the best you can do. Now, I don't know about you. I had to learn that here. I had to learn how to be a worker among workers here. Because I wasn't when I came in here. When I came in here, I make a joke about it. I lived in Buckner's world. I lived by Buckner's law. Whatever Buckner wanted, you better get it for him. I could walk into any studio in this town. I could walk into any agency's offices, any PR firm. And, good morning, Mr. Buckner. I would say, I want to photograph so-and-so or such and such. They'd get them for me. You know, I had a reputation. And when I got arrested, that reputation went right out the window. And the program gave it back to me. The program gave me a second chance. That one day at a time, you know, I can do a new life. I heard from somebody that this program was originally called A New Way of Life. And they changed it to Alcoholics Anonymous because they didn't want to be preachy. You know? But I came in here broken. I came in here, you know, just looking the wrong way and thinking that I didn't deserve the miracles that happen here. And I mean, you know, you work the steps here, and I went home to make amends to my mom. And I walked through the front door, and she turns around with a highball in her hand and says, I don't want none of your AA shit in my house. You know? And I came back here and I didn't understand that. My sponsor said, she doesn't have a program. Pray for her. Learning a new way. You know, learning to live sober. It ain't easy. People with time, we're not bulletproof. You know, we don't walk on water. And if you think they do, or if they act like they do, you get as far away from them as you can. I mean, there's a few in this program, you know. There's a few people in this program who are very sick because we're all, you know, a couple of cans short of a six-pack. But we're trying to do the best we can do. I mean, we talk about, you know, the changes here, the miracles here, and I'm trying to think because I've had miracles I didn't believe. When I was going to the meeting here, and one of the guys told me, why don't you go back to the Washington, you know, to the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. I'm a Vietnam vet, and I spent 16 months in country and 9 months in the hospital from wounds. And I said, okay, and I got on a plane and I flew back there. I took my uniform, hung in the closet 20-something years, right? I took the uniform, I wrote a letter, an amends letter, a shame letter, and I flew back and I got on, you know, I went to the wall on the same day that I was wounded, and I left my uniform and the letter at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. And I sat and cried. And a guy I don't even know came over and he says, what's wrong? And I said, I was afraid. I said, I don't know how to explain it. I was afraid. And he says, you know, bravery is not the absence of fear. It's feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Now, I didn't know that in here. You know, I learned that in here. And I learned that you know, I got a chance. But I got a chance, and I'm not alone. I think that was the biggest point, the biggest part of everything, was that I am not alone. I am in a room full of people that are walking down the same road. And sometimes, you know, I think God's got a great sense of humor. You know, my granddad died. I loved him more than I can say. He was like a father. And I got on the plane and I'm flying back to Florida. And I'm crying and I'm on the red eye. And I just decided in the flight that I can't do this. I can't do this sober. And I wear the AA symbol around my neck. And I had a t-shirt on and everything. And so I, bing, you know, I called the stewardess over. And she comes over and she sees the AA symbol and she goes, oh, I got 82 days. Yeah, if you can figure out how to order a drink from a stewardess with 82 days. You're doing better than I am. So I went, all right, God, I got the joke, you know. And I went through his funeral sober. I mean, that's just one of the stories, you know, that I've got here. The ninth step, I went back and made amends for things that I had done and the things that I was crazy when I did. You know, I went back and made amends to the agencies and everything. And, you know, I got a life here. I got a life here. I mean, I came in here and I couldn't think past a drink. And people here reached out to me. If you were new, one thing, and then I'll wrap it up. It's going to be a little early. I'm sure you can deal with it. If you're new and you go out, come back. If I say nothing else, if you go out, come back. I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen. If you're in this room, people are going to reach out to you, right? They're going to be friends with you. They're going to go to dinner with you. They're going to go to meetings with you. They're going to talk with you. It's going to be a nice time. And then you go out. And when you come back, there are going to be people who avoid you, who like you got some kind of a disease, you know, because you're communicable, because you slipped. They're going to avoid you. But there's going to be another group of people that come up to you who know that's what alcoholics do. You know, we aren't perfect. When I went out, you know, and I came back and people avoided me, I wanted to leave. And people here, you know, and there reached out to me and said, welcome back. Because I was alive. Because in the 22 years that I've been coming in here, I've seen people who were working a damn good program go out and die. Because they get a drug or they do, you know, whatever. I don't know why. And I don't want anybody to die of this disease. Not me, not you. You know. So when you come, if you go out, I want you to know that you are welcome to come back. Your head ain't going to say that because you're going to be ashamed. All right? I was ashamed. I don't know, you know. I didn't want to come back, but those guys came and got me. That one guy with Chris was about 6'4", and he dragged me out of the car, you know. But this program, for me, I'm an alcoholic. I am bodily and mentally different than my fellows. And the only place I've got a chance to live is here. Thank you for my life.